Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ratchet and Clank. So it's actually Rivet and Clank now. So
I like that Rivet has a hammer instead of a wrench for her weapon, but I also like the robot arm.
well, we're about to get into why she has that robot arm.
Oh,
Is it because she lost her arm?
Yes,
Wow.
she
did
can't find it. It was laying somewhere around here, and she just can't figured it out.
did she lose it in a lightsaber duel with her father just to complete the Luke Skywalker thing?
Man, do you ever find a robot off the street and then very invasively read his memories? Rude.
I like how Rivet has more of a reaction to seeing another Lombax than Ratchet has ever done.
You were being honest.
As I have been saying repeatedly.
It is funny that Clank has lost the same arm that Rivet has here.
Oh, maybe she can lend it to him,
I know it might sound crazy, but
I mean, she probably could. It would unbalance Clank something awful, but it might work.
look, whatever's going on
I
here.
like the frickin' Iron Man energy blaster thing it's got, like, on the palm now.
Not
I know it probably doesn't blast energy, but it looks like it could.
like the Emperor.
it's also like a flashlight. When you're you turn the light off when you go to bed.
Yeah.
I like how she has one in every individual finger, and I'm trying to imagine what that would work like in Iron Man.
I think they have something like that in one of the Iron Man movies, or maybe an Avengers movie, where
Diary.
you know what? I think it might be the first Avengers movie. He's doing some sort of techie stuff at the bottom of the ocean to power up the tower, and I think it's either coming out of his palm or all of the fingers. I don't really remember.
Who's ready for a boss fight?
Oh boy.
Oh, it's the guy that's been in the sky the entire time.
Magnetics.
Oh, they remembered that infobots exist, did they?
Yep, if you get all 9 infobots, you get the Rhino in this game.
Oh. Huh. Well, I suppose that makes more sense than trading cards.
There's trading cards in Ratchet and Clank. What?
In the Ratchet remake, they changed how you got the Rhino. In the original game, it just cost a fuck lot of money because consumerism. In the remake, they hid all these trading cards with lame key art on them that you had to find throughout the game. And if you found a certain set, you would get the Rhino.
So it's not even getting all of them. It's you just have to find the right handful.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of lame.
On the other hand, you did actually have like a ghost of a chance of getting the Rhino on your first playthrough in that system, because in the original game and in like all the classic Ratchet games, and I think most of the future series, it's so ungodly expensive that it's basically New Game Plus unless you spend hours grinding for it.
Which is honestly probably part of the point.
Yeah,
Like-
it is. It absolutely
Yeah.
is. But I mean, you don't need the Rhino in Ratchet 2. You just need the bouncer.
The bouncer by Tetsuya Nomura.
No, the bouncer from Ratchet 2, which is a weapon that shoots all these bouncing giant spherical bombs.
And
the-
I'm making a joke, but
yeah, I know. But like the bouncer in Ratchet 2 is so ungodly broken, especially when you level it up, that it decimates the final boss in moments. It's like at that point, you don't need the Rhino. What is it even doing here? And they made the bouncer a pre-order weapon in the Ratchet remake, and it's just as broken there. Yeah.
Oh, so it's only a pre-order weapon. You can't get it now.
I don't know if they ever gave people the ability to buy the DLC that gets you the bouncer, but it was a pre-order weapon, yeah.
they do something similar here where I think is either a pre-order or just like a new version got you the pixelator early, but it's a weapon you can just buy in New Game Plus.
Oh, the pixelators here.
Yeah.
Great. That's another weapon that was introduced in the remake that just turns the enemies it kills into pixely blobs, which doesn't really interest me all that much.
It's just the worst shotgun.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. It's like a lot of Ratchet weapons have some specific utility that makes them useful in certain situations, but then there are just weapons like the Pixelator that are just meme guns that don't actually do anything specifically helpful.
I know there's a weapon that shoots sheep. Is that just kind of a meme gun?
The Sheepinator, I think it's called, does turn enemies into sheep. I think that one is a limited ammo gun that transforms enemies regardless of damage.
Okay, so it would be good against like really big.
It would be good
health
against bullet
enemies.
spongy stuff, yes. But I've never used it, so I don't know.
I know that like in a game like this, you're obviously gonna get like one or two weapons that are more for comedy value than practical stuff. But
I also know that some of the weapons currently in Ratchet's metagame, so to speak, started in the early Future series as gadgets rather than weapons. And gadgets were like side tools that had their own ammo counts, but like you could only hold like 4 of them at a time or something. And
so like equivalent to like grenades a little bit.
yeah, kind of. And stuff like the Groovatron were gadgets originally. So you had to think about how you utilize them a little more than you do now that they have regular ammo counts. The Groovatron, for example, is this tool that throws out this floating disco ball that forces all your enemies to dance the disco. It's pretty handy. In fact, it's really handy. You throw it out, and all the enemies just can't like do anything for a little while, and you're free to pick them off at your leisure. That's why it was like a limited use item in Tools of Destruction. The only funny thing they ever did with the Groovatron after introducing it was, again, in the remake where Quark uses it against you.
Okay, that's, I like when games do stuff like that. So that's pretty funny.
So this is what that feels like. Yeah, when he throws out the Groovatron, you have to dance over to it and disable it. Otherwise, you can't fight back.
Yeah, so like it seems like there's a number of weapons that like are pretty
Trailer
much...
shot.
Boom. Well, that is a good trailer shot.
You came after me.
You saved me.
He can't grab your hand if one of them's... Oh, wait, or that can happen. Okay, sure, whatever. But yeah, it looks like you've got like a shotgun equivalent, like a pistol equivalent. Some of the later weapons have been more different though, like the
We have a
giant funky
grenade
lasers,
equivalent, but yeah.
are definitely like not something you would see in most other kind of games like this.
There are some weapons that sadly have... What? Were you floating?
A little bit. I think the hit detection was a bit wonky there.
I love it when games do that. Okay, so... Oh, you need to use the portals as grapple points. So that's cool. That is actually legitimately cool. Some of the weapons from the early games have sadly fallen by the wayside, though. For example, there's a remote control missile that operates kind of like the remote control Batarang from Batman Arkham Asylum, only way earlier and also way more destructive. You just remote control the missile from the missile's point of view until it hits something or goes too far away. And you could do a lot with the Visibomb, but they sort of stopped including it in the game. I suppose because if they let you have the Visibomb, you could break a lot of their design by just flying the Visibomb around things.
So I see that, like, what you mean, Lewis, in that this system could very easily, like, reward you for only ever using one weapon, but at the very least, I can tell that they do lock off certain grids on
The
whatever.
grids are locked based on your weapon level.
Yeah, so at the very least, like, there is a point where you're effectively, like, wasting points on a weapon, and it's better to...
It's less wasting points is that you just can't use it all on that one weapon forever.
You don't gain raritanium by using the specific weapon. Using the specific weapon is what you need to do to level the weapon up so that you can unlock more of those slots.
Oh, okay. So if you don't keep using the weapon, you'll never get more slots. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm misunderstanding it. Then I thought that it was like tied to like game progression
Yeah.
or something like that, which would have meant that okay, once you've gotten all the slots on this weapon, it's like there's not really a reason to use it. You're just kind of wasting time. That's kind of why I never end up using good weapons in Fire Emblem because like if I've maxed out spears, but now I need to use axes because otherwise I'm not leveling anything up.
I never want to use my killer weapons because the upgrade materials are so goddamn expensive.
Yeah,
I have the Regal sword, but what would I use it on besides maybe a boss?
This Levin sword sure is tempting, but repairing it once it breaks, goddamn.
that was an old Brawl in the Family comic for Fire Emblem Awakening, where Frederick's like, why am I using this dinky bronze sword? They're just like, oh, you need to level it up. Let's go, brave heroes. And it's just like all of the derpy like farmhands and like lame ass like quote unquote bad characters. Because like Donald and Olivia, who are terrible to start but get good later, it's just like, Crom, what are you doing?
Of course, the real answer to that is using the weaker weapons generally comes with better accuracy, so you can double more effectively.
It's not doubling is due to character speed.
Yeah, and the speed is affected by what level of weapon you're using in relation to their skill level.
It's also related to the weapon's weight, which the better weapons tend to weigh more. Generally speaking, why you want to use lower stuff is also it gives you more skill points for using them. So you level up your skill using a certain type of weapon faster if you use like the iron or bronze rather than a steel or silver.
That actually makes a decent amount of sense in that you could, if you had a good sword, you would be coasting on the magic fire sword as opposed to like learning how to be good at fighting.
Yeah. Man, it's such a catch 22.
Yes, 22.
It's such a catch-22 though. Like the weapon durability makes players really reluctant to actually use their good weapons, but at the same time, if you take the weapon durability away, the game just becomes too easy.
Yeah, high fates.
If Three Houses took away weapon durability?
Three Houses brought weapon durability back and implemented it for combat arts.
Oh, right. It was Fates that took away weapon. I thought that
which is partially what made the game way too easy.
Yeah.
Well, if you're playing if you're playing boring ass Hoshido, whatever, Hokkaido, boring.
Hoshino, I think.
Birthright.
Birthright. If you're playing Birthright, which is one of the most like, God, I hate Birthright.
They had a really weird difficulty curve in Fates where one path was explicitly the easy mode, the other path was explicitly the hard mode, and the third path, which you were supposed to play last, was somewhere in the middle for some reason.
Sort of. It was somewhere in the middle early on, and then you get the lords from both sides, and then it just becomes a cakewalk.
Oh.
Yeah, so here's the thing about Fire Emblem Fates. Like, I think Birthright is easily like one of the worst, is like the worst Fire Emblem I've played without a doubt. Conquest is frustrating because it's got the more compelling story by a long shot, but there's just a lot of dumb plot holes in it that don't really make a lot of sense. And it's got really interesting like map and level design and stuff like that, but it's also like just kind of too unfair at certain points, which makes some stuff more frustrating than fun. So it's like Conquest is like almost there to being great, but doesn't quite make it, and Birthright's just awful.
Ryan, I think the rupees were causing slowdown there.
A little bit.
Oh, there's a floating piece of grass.
Yeah.
The game still looks great, don't get me wrong. It's just, as a content creator, we have to make fun of every graphical mistake we see.
It was just such abrupt slowdown, though.
Oh, no, that wasn't slowdown. That was the weapon leveling up.
Oh.
Whenever you or a weapon levels up, it does a dramatic slow-mo, da-da-da-da-da jingle thing.
Oh, okay. You see, I'm not used to that because I've mostly played the older games, and when a weapon leveled up, the game would just stop. The weapon would appear on screen and spin in front of the camera, and it would glow, and it would flash, and it would transform. And it was a big dramatic moment because it only happened once every 100 years because weapons took too goddamn long to level up. But yeah, okay, so.
Yeah, we cannot 100% this level on the first run through. We have to come back later for some things.
Wait, does you have a wall jump?
Yeah.
On any wall, not just the specially marked ones?
I think it's mostly on the... I think it's especially marked walls where it'll actually do anything for you.
Yeah, but you can actually just use it anywhere.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, if they started doing that in an earlier game than this, I sure didn't notice it. Wow. Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Bonk.
Because if you can just jump off of any wall, that is an extra maneuver that you can pull off during combat.
Can you please stop hitting everything past me?
I don't know why I'm randomly now in, like, we've had a bunch of Fire Emblem tangents this commentary so far, and I'm, like, randomly now, like, somewhat interested in replaying Fire Emblem Awakening, but, like, not interested at all still in playing Three Houses, and I have no idea why that is.
In terms of replaying or playing?
Well, it's, like, I am in the mood to replay Fire Emblem Awakening, but I'm not in the mood at all to try Three Houses for the first time. Does that make sense? It's just, like, I still have zero interest in Three Houses, but, like, man, I could go for Fire Emblem Awakening, you know?
Is there a particular thing about the game that turned you off?
It's weird. It's hard to describe it's more just kind of a vibe.
Now
I don't have words. It's kind of a no, I'm just not that interested.
You see,
there's not really words for it.
That's exactly how I would describe why I'm less interested in Awakening than in Three Houses, so I actually totally get it.
Yeah, I think I understand. I think for one thing, like, the school setting for the early parts just doesn't do much for me.
Oh,
There's that.
Well, I'm actually a Persona fan, so that does a lot for me.
I was gonna say we're Persona fans, so
there's that.
But, like, one of the things that I would actually say is in Three Houses' favor is that it's less overtly anime. So, like, for example, when Three Houses wants to do a semi-funny womanizer type character, its answer was Sylvain, who's, kind of obnoxious but has a fairly serious story underneath it all. And when Awakening wants to do a character that hits on women, it has a random archer with a weird design show up out of the blue.
Edgeworth? Okay. Blue hair Edgeworth. No, Virian's actually, like, one of my favorite characters in the game. Virian, and I don't know if it's different for female Robin, but Virian and male Robin's support conversation is actually my favorite in all of Awakening.
I love how Virian's the only person who can beat Robin at chess.
Yeah, but that's why I like it. It's because it's talking about the entire support conversation is about why Fire Emblem's permadeath mechanic makes it a good strategy game. Because, like, part of what makes Fire Emblem interesting and hard is that you don't want to let your characters die, which is like a centerpiece of almost every other strategy game from chess to StarCraft. Just like, yeah, you're going to need to let some individual units die in order to win, but Robin's just not about that, so that's why he keeps losing to Virian at chess. And it's part of the end of the support is like, this is why I might be better at this game, but you're a better person than I am because you won't let anybody die for no reason. Which is, yeah. Man, I loved Fire Emblem. I do love Fire Emblem Awakening. I really should play the game again.
It's also thematically interesting that conversation happens because chess itself began life as a tool for learning battle strategy.
Yeah. And it's also just interesting to see a metaphor about it done like that because it's actually kind of done interestingly as opposed to how many anime villains have had the, like, grand chess master motif where, like, oh, they're willing to use anybody as a pawn in their game, and it's just
the only time for me that was ever used interestingly in anime was in Code Geass, of all things.
Oh, is that the one with the guy with the eye and he can make people
Yes.
do what they want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so he's still he's in his anti-hero disguise thing. Although the other character he's playing against has an idea of who he is, and it's basically a way to kind of like try to figure each other out a little bit. But basically, the guy the main character is facing more or less intentionally loses and leaves a really bitter taste in the main character's mouth, not because he didn't win the right way. It's more he was forced to take into a victory he didn't really feel like he earned, and that in and of itself told a lot to the guy he was fighting and how frustrated he was kind of at the whole thing.
Oh, this is an interesting section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful about what boxes you shoot, don't you? Jeez.
Yes.
How well does Code Geass hold up, do you think, Ryan? I know you watch a lot more anime than I do.
Yeah, it's hard to say because I haven't watched it in forever.
Because that came out like 2006 or 7, right?
7 or so. It was one of the last actually big mecha shows with Gurren Lagann. I'd like to, just thinking about it, I think it's aged a little bit worse than Gurren Lagann, if only because Gurren Lagann just doesn't care.
Gurren Lagann, I think, if you were to show that to somebody today, like, especially the last, like, 3 or 4 episodes, are just, like, stupid, but in, like, the best possible way of being stupid, you know?
Yeah, whereas Code Geass has a lot of Death Note, I'm smarter than you, and then they're gonna think through your plan before you can even think about it sort of thing. It's like, it's good, but it also has a number of stumbling parts.
Okay.
I'd say it's worth a watch if you're curious.
I am curious.
The original point I was trying to make about Three Houses, though, is that it kind of has just a generally down-to-earth tone in its presentation that I kind of prefer. Because characters like fucking Tharja or Camila or
Tharja's. I don't get the. Okay.
I don't get.
I
don't get
understand
I don't get
the
love.
appeal of Tharja. I think y'all are perverts. That's the honest answer. If you want to know my opinion on Tharja.
I guess like characters like Tharja or Carmilla or Virion, the archest of archers, or fucking there's a certain character that I'm thinking of who dropped his axe. I don't remember his name. That fucking asshole.
God. Teach. What's his name? God, there's so many characters in Fire Emblem.
I know, right?
I don't remember his name, but he looked stupid and acted stupid, and it was all kind of over the top.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the feeling that Awakening and especially Fates both have, is that over the top feeling.
Yeah, a lot of character. That's part of what made the supports interesting, was that in Awakening, I should say, is that a lot of the characters that appear as tropes do have at least some of them, most of them, not all of them, because like Tharja doesn't have any depth, but like some of them do have some depth, versus I didn't really get that from most of the characters in Fates. I thought that almost all of them felt
just one
really
note as
trope.
hell.
Well, it's frustrating because like who's Big Booby Lady from Conquest? With
Carmilla.
like she's legitimately an interesting character in some of the supports. Keyword some.
Yeah,
and
but
then like they don't like go into it for most of them, and she's just like, oh, big booby, slightly yandere, older sister character, and it's like it's very tropey. I agree.
Yeah, and like they look tropey, and in Fate's case, they're often written tropey. In Three Houses, they tend to have a trope on the surface, but then there's something underneath that justifies it and makes it relatable. Like Dorothea. She's the game's sexy character. Her thing is that she's actually trying to get married for the sake of her future because she knows her beauty won't last. So, like, she has funny conversations. She has heartwarming conversations where she's a surprisingly good friend, a surprisingly better friend than you would expect at first glance. And then she has a serious conversation with Caspar, about all people, about how, like, both of their motivations are essentially the same thing, except, you know, different gender coding. And, you know, that's the kind of tone that Three Houses has with most of its characters. I say most because there are there's always gonna be at least one lame duck in a Fire Emblem cast.
Oh, when you've got 30 characters, or in Fire Emblem Three Houses case, it's like 50, right? Because there's 3 different routes to go down.
4.
I mean, technically 4.
Well,
4.
3.5.
Remember when the school kept a group of slaves in the basement, and then Blue House guy was just like, no, we can't call that out. That's rude.
They're not slaves. They're actually like renegades that are very grudgingly given sanctuary in the underground city there, but like nobody trusts them.
Yeah,
So-
it's a matter of it was the only option they really had, and both sides are just kind of like, we don't like you, so like we'll just deal with it as best we can.
Yeah.
I remember seeing like some dialogue where Yellow guy is like, wow, you're
Claw.
keeping these guys in the basement. You're
Well-
really treating them that badly. And then
well,
Blue
like-
guy's like, don't be rude. It's like,
well, like,
bro, he's got a point.
One of them is a secret criminal, like gang lord. One of them is like running from bounty hunters because of all the debt he's accrued. One of them summons monsters if she accidentally sighs. And
Yeah, the thing is, they're not nice people in the basement.
yeah, so like Abyss is an interesting and weird storyline, but they made it work. And that's kind of the storytelling strength of Three Houses, is that they're interesting and weird things, but they have the tonal balance chops to make it like just level-headed enough to fly.
But however, there's a bad texture for the grapes, so it's the worst.
There's a
game ever,
bad
0.
texture for everything in the game because the graphics engine is horrible and badly optimized.
Well, because it's the Warriors engine.
Every cutscene has a bad 2D background, which is such a downgrade from the way cutscenes happened in the 3DS games that it's actually kind of like divine how much of a
I assume you're talking about like the CGI cutscenes as opposed to like the floating heads.
I'm talking about the way 3D in-engine cutscenes are handled. In the 3DS games, the character models will be walking around in 3D environments, and they'll like look at each other, and there'll be a text box for dialogue, and that's what they do for their in-engine cutscenes there. In Three Houses, every cutscene in-engine is the 3D models against this really low-res, horrible 2D background. And it's awful. I hate it. I can't stand it. It's a good thing the rest of the game does so much for me, because those cutscenes are bad.